Welcome back to the Renegade Report. I'm Francis Mayer, Sports Information Director for one of the most storied athletic programs in California, in global, universal history. Why don't we go with that? And we're talking to Coach Sandy Taylor about what's been going on with Measure J and some of the funding that's going to come to the campus. But we're also talking about what the department might look like in the future. Now, here's a gal from Tulare, from a little ag community, right? And your dad liked to coach some sports.
Yeah.
But little Sandy, now, was she allowed to play?
You know what? I was not allowed to play until I was 15 when I discovered that there was a Bobby Sox league in town.
Why didn't you play at school?
Well, I played at country school. I went to a little country school named Joaquina Elementary, which is about 5 miles from Corcoran. And I played there. We had sports, 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade teams, that sort of thing. But when I started high school, they didn't have any athletic teams. Title IX didn't pass till 1973, and I started high school in 74, so it was just hadn't got to us yet. Then as that progressed, I had more opportunities. So I started softball when I was a senior, and I ended up playing softball in college. So I think volleyball started when I was a sophomore. Women's basketball started when I was a junior. So slowly it started. But, I only played 6.5 years of competitive softball.
But you made the most of it. You played in the first College World Series.
I did.
Did you think that was going to happen in your lifetime? Would you have imagined that?
No, I had no idea. I was very naive. And to this day, I have to think about, you played on national TV. That's kind of cool. But at the time, you just didn't wrap your brain around it. I probably would have been a lot more nervous, but it was just, hey, we get to play another game. Let's go.
And you played in a lot of other games. Unfortunately, you didn't finish the season with a win, but you finished the season with a good line and 1 of 2 hits for Fresno State. You drew a walk too, I believe.
I think so.
You got on base twice,
yep.
And it was a close game, a nail-biter. But you got to be involved in thrilling softball. Now, you just said something interesting to me about how this is still very nascent, women being involved in athletics. And I would argue that some of the best highs that we had as a department in the last year came thanks to the women in the department, in basketball and in volleyball. But you feel like this is...
Well, we definitely have had some successes on the women's side this year as well as the men's. But, when you think about women's athletics, or when I think about it, it is still very young. If you're talking about BC Athletics was established in 1922, but Title IX didn't pass until 1973. We're 50 years behind just in the law passing. And then how long did it take to get it started? Softball started at Bakersfield College in 1980. So it's not that old when you think about it. To build traditions, to build alumni, people coming back to the program, giving back to the program, it takes some time. So when you think about it that way, it is still very young, but it's growing. And, so you look at athletes now and how many more opportunities they have to train earlier and differently with more coaching, more professional coaching, more expertise, if you will. I mean, when I played softball at COS, it was a football coach who in the off season they assigned to coach softball, which isn't necessarily bad because you got all the discipline and you got all of the training that they're used to, but they didn't necessarily have the skill set for coaching softball. And I had a different one each year because it was just a rotational assignment, right? So it wasn't specified to hire a softball coach, of which, makes a difference. The only female coach I had in my college career was at Fresno State, and Donna Pickle.
But at COS it was like see the ball, hit the ball, right?
Yeah.
Get the force out and whatnot.
Well, and they'll both don't get me wrong. Both those coaches were very talented coaches and in their own right, and I learned a lot from them. It just may not have been the softball skill. Fortunately for me, I chased my brother around while he was playing Little League and practiced with them every day, so I had a foundation. But if you were a incoming fresh athlete, female athlete that didn't have any of that training, you might have been not served as well. But I was fortunate. I practiced for 9 years before I played my first Bobby Sox league because my dad let me practice all the time. Not everybody had that opportunity.
With a wood bat, too. I love that story. With a big wood bat.
Yeah.
And so you're right about that. And there are athletic endeavors where you might be able to get by, or you could get by on just pure raw talent, physical genius, like, say, the 100-meter dash, right? But the bat and ball games, that's a I don't know that there's many natural motions that, right?
Well, and you think about now, I think about Coach Carl Ferreira and the training that he does with his student athletes, both indoor and with beach. You know, he has got it dialed in. The skills are broken down completely and built back up. And so those female athletes that are having that training is just so much further ahead of where I was when I got to play. It's not even comparable, right? And so student athletes are better now because of training. They're better because of opportunities for coaching that we didn't have when I was playing. So that's the part that's fun for me to watch. Even as I progressed as a softball coach, the level of intricacy to teach each skill for me grew exponentially by the time I was finished, which is hard because you want it to be there now when if you have a new coach, they're new at learning that. I didn't know if I knew what I knew at the end, at the beginning, who knows? But it's crazy.
But that it just so it goes for the athlete, so it goes for the coach is what I'm hearing is that it's reps.
Oh, absolutely. You don't know what you don't know until you go through it. And so learning how to teach it, I coached 31 years, so I had 31 opening days, 31 chances to prepare for opening day. How many practices does somebody have before they open a play?
Right.
So if I have 31 chances to open a season and I didn't do my homework beforehand, we weren't ready to go. So if you think of it that way, you don't get a lot of repetitions as a head coach. And Coach Carl and I have had this conversation a number of times, but he says by the time you figure it out, it's time to retire.
Hey, how many times do you hang out with Coach Carl and not walk away with something? He said that is a deep pool right there.
Right. Well, not enough. We have some very engaging conversations, and as a softball coach, I was fortunate to share an office space with him, so we got to communicate a lot about that sort of thing, just sitting around talking, But he has a vast amount of experience and different levels. He was at Division I level for 13 years. He's written a book. He's developed training techniques and aids that he's patented. He's top of the line, and so it's fun to have those philosophical conversations with him, and no different than just sitting around, with your friends and having those conversations. Whether you like to have a cold beverage or not, and just talking about armchair quarterback type things. It's the same sort of stuff that you just sit around and talk about. How do you get better as a coach and as a teacher? Because you can't have one without the other. You can't be a good coach these days without being a good teacher because it just is so integrated.
Well, yeah, and the point about reps and being immersed in it, which we are, I can't emphasize that enough. Mark Davis inherited the Oakland Raiders from his father, the iconic Al Davis. And Mark has a funny haircut. He drives a Dodge Grand Caravan, and he hangs out at P.F. Chang's a lot. And folks didn't take him very seriously because Mr. Davis was very demanding and very hard on his son. But a writer watched a game with Mark Davis, and he said he was astounded by how many times he correctly predicted the outcome of plays. And the guy said, "How do you do that?" And he said, "Man, I've been watching these games since I was born.
Right.
I've watched more football than you could shake a stick at. I've watched practices." And it's watching those movements over and over again. You're going to notice hitches and little vagaries and stuff that, right?
Absolutely. And I watched our softball team play on Tuesday, lost 2 heartbreak games to Cuesta. Cuesta came from behind, but I'm watching the game and it's funny. I was watching the game with a family friend, someone who I coached her daughter, and her granddaughter was playing for Cuesta College. So my Tulare neighbor, I was sitting there watching the game with, and I said, I'm absolutely the worst fan of softball because I don't watch it as a fan. I will always watch it as a coach and always looking at what are they doing technique-wise, and, it's hard to separate now.
My wife doesn't like watching television with me, and they call it producer's ear, producer's eye. If you work in media long enough, you start doing that. Oh, that's a bad shot. Look at that. Hey, you're going to sleep, dude. Come on now, tighten it up. Yeah. And I can't imagine, and I look at you sometimes when you're watching softball, and I wonder how it is. You walked right out of coaching where you won over 500 games, and then you get into administration. And that had to be a radical shift of not teaching student athletes on a regular, direct basis like you were.
Oh, yeah.
And I wonder how that transition has been. We're going to take a quick break. Don't go anywhere. We're going to get a live tattoo on the air for Coach Taylor when we come back. It's going to be a hoot. Wait till you see what it is. I'm kidding. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.